All right, and we're back. It is COMP1073. Welcome back. It's week 5, lesson 5, part 1 of our broadcast. And we're not going to do a little quiz this morning yet. We might do one halfway through, right? But I want to talk about a couple things. I've planned to have another little mini assignment I'm going to throw at you guys due next week. And this is what we're going to do. I want you to take your, it's up on Blackboard, by the way. Let's just talk about the assignment. So the one that you have to do is due tonight, right? Or tomorrow. There we go. Let's do tonight. Let's do tonight, tomorrow, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to take assignment 1, and I want you to modify it for assignment 2, right? That's why I told you assignment 1 is going to be your base, and assignment 2 we're going to build on, right? So again, assignment 2 due next week, Friday at midnight, so just one week away. Right? And then you're going to extend your mini portfolio from assignment 1. And what you're going to do is you're going to allow, when the user enters his form data, I want you just to take it out, put it inside variables, right? That's the exercise, right? And pump it out to the console. All right, so all the form data in the console. So that means I want to see when the user presses the submit button, right? All the form data goes to the console. Okay, that's what I want you to do. Okay, that's really the exercise. So it's with 5%. It's not a big assignment, right? So all you're doing is modifying one page. I still want you to do things like, there's 28 marks in the assignment, but really the same kind of stuff you were doing before for internal documentation. I haven't left it there. I haven't changed anything or whatever. One thing it says here is that from a GitHub perspective that you use demonstrate for version control best practices and all that kind of stuff. For this particular version, what I want you to do is, because again, we haven't come up with a final version, I want you to create a new GitHub repository for this one, separate from your assignment 1. All right, that's what I want you to do. And then on Azure, create a separate web space for it. So you have assignment 1 separate, assignment 2 separate, right? So 2 different assignments, right? And then you can look at the difference. Now, there's an opportunity here for you guys. If you want to do any tweaking between assignment 1 and assignment 2, like to make it look different or modify things, whatever, you're perfectly okay to do that. But really, they're 2 separate things. And the reason for that is I want to see that, okay, here's a form that doesn't work with JavaScript, and here's a form, like, for example, you may have made your form work with PHP, right? Because you guys are doing, some of you are doing PHP, I'm hoping, right? And that's totally fine. You can make it work with PHP. But I want this one to, when you enter it, when you click the submit button, it takes all the form data, it spits it out to the console, and that's the exercise. Okay, so you have a week. It's 5. That's why it's 5%. It's like almost like a greater lab than more than an assignment, right? But I want you to do that. And we're going to talk about how to do some of that stuff today. So if you follow along with the stuff I'm talking about today, you can almost finish your assignment in class, right? So we'll talk about that. Any questions about assignment number 1? If you do have any, and I'm going to go around today. I want to see what you got, right? Because I want to sit down with each of you, and there's going to be a space where if you haven't had a chance to finish it off, or you want to polish it off by tomorrow or whatever, I'll give you a little bit of class time while I go around and talk to everybody, right? Now, it'll be probably the first part of the class. I want to do that first, and then I want to go into the new stuff that we're going to talk about, right? So be prepared to show me what you got. Hopefully you're pretty much done, right? You don't have your here at all? On your desktop at home. All right, well, whoever has it, I mean, I'd like to kind of, look at it if possible, right? And the reason why is I want to give you some direct feedback, right? So that way, before tomorrow is due, right, I can kind of say, yes, it's kind of cool, or no, you know what, I think you need to fix this and this, that kind of stuff. So that way, I can kind of direct you a little better. So I want to try and do that kind of one of the first things that we do today in class is a little exercise. Now, let's review some of the stuff we talked about last week, and before we do our little test. And I'm talking about around midway through our class. So, and I know I planned it this way because I know for a fact that people are going to be late. Today is one of those cold days. People want to stay home and not come in. I was almost there, right? Coming from Toronto, I was thinking, should I? Should I? I don't know. And then, Rich sent me a note saying, buddy, it's clear. Come up, right? So I was like, okay. So, I rode the highway all the way up, and it was cool. But it was one of those decision points. So going back to this, so the assignment details are up on Blackboard for you. Again, it's not very complex. It's worth 28 points, right? So again, the way I mark it is this. If it's worth, for every about 30 points or so, it's usually worth around 5% for me. So if it's something like that's worth, anywhere between 70 and 90 points, or if you will, then that's where it becomes like, let's say 15% or a larger project or whatever with lots of different points, right? But 28 points is like a little thing that you can kind of knock off in kind of within a week or so. And because there's not a lot of requirement, right? The requirement is low, right? It's all you have to do is a couple things, right? So we'll talk about that. So last week, I'm just going to review what we did last week a little bit. I'm going to shut this one down. Last week, we kind of pulled up, Visual Studio Code here, and let me just go into COMP1073 to bring it up. Which one is it?
Assignment, the PDF.
It's not on Blackboard. What the hell?
The assignment's there, but just not the.
Oh, we'll have to change that right now. Who knows how that happened? We'll go up into that assignment and load up that PDF so you have all the details. How about them apples? I'll just do that right now. So again, just a reminder of what we talked about last week as I do this for you guys. We talked about a little bit of functions. I want to go back into functions today, right, and talk about functions more. I really scratched the surface, and it was a kind of a little quick discussion on functions. And I talked about how to access the DOM with our famous document.getElementById. You should see it now, right? Document.getElementById, right? So that was the two things that I used. So the DOM, we access the DOM with document.getElementById. And so I want to try and do that a little bit again. And for that, just to kind of bounce off of the stuff that I did last week, I'm going to go to GitHub for a second. So let's go to GitHub. And again, you should be using GitHub on a fairly regular basis nowadays. So here's Georgian. And if I look at some of the stuff that we talked about last week, so there's lesson 4. Again, I'm just going to use this one. So how do I do that? How do I kind of base up? Not 100% GitHub savvy. Let's try this one more time, right? So here I'm going to do what you're going to do, all right? So go to my Georgian College repository here and go to COMP1073 lesson 4 and click download. So base it off mine is what I'm asking you to do. And I'm going to put this on the desktop. So I'm going to go to desktop here and I'm going to drop it into desktop, right? There we go. And I'm going to unzip this file. There we go, it's unzipped. Now there's different ways to do that on the PC, but I've got mine over here. Notice that it gives me this folder with master at the end, right? So COMP1073 lesson 4 master. I want to change this to, this is lesson 5. Let's rename the folder. It's the first thing I'm going to do. This is part way done right now. Like basically, once I've gotten this piece done, I'm halfway there. And there's a couple of pieces I need to make changes to, right? So yes. Please download mine. Well, that's why I'm doing it, right? So go back up here to github.com/Georgian College, and then go to COMP1073 lesson 4. I'll wait for you guys to do that. And once you do it, click the download button and download it to your desktop and unzip it there, right? So that you do that with whether you're on the Mac or Windows machines, it shouldn't be a big deal. So just go grab it and put it on your desktop. So again, you look at Georgian College under GitHub. Okay, cool. So let's say you download it and you unzip it. You want to pull up Visual Studio Code, and what you want to do is drag and drop this piece right into Visual Studio Code like this. There you go. Here's Visual Studio Code. All right. If you notice, I've got a couple things here from last day. I have my content folder and my scripts folder. My index.html is almost perfect. What I want to do here is I want to change the title, if I have a title, and it is, from COMP1073 lesson 4 to COMP1073 lesson 5. Because that's where we're at right now. So that's the only change I'm really making so far on this thing, right? One thing to note, I don't have, if I download it like this, right, as an example, I won't have, lesson 5, I won't have a, and this is the Emmet script up here. I'll leave that up there for people who want to see that. I don't have a Git repository, right? Because if I've downloaded my repo from GitHub, right? I've got to restate my Git repository and start a new one. So again, I'm going to do this locally. So I'm going to right click and open in terminal or open in command prompt, right, for you Windows people. And I'm going to go back here and just go, git init, right, to initialize my Git repository. Hopefully, the more you see this stuff, the more comfortable you'll get. That's why I'm doing it over and over and over again. So for example, on our exam and midterm, I'm going to make you do some of the same stuff, right? I'm going to say, hey, create a local repository, right? Share your stuff on GitHub. Deploy to Azure, right? It's all going to be done in class, right? So if you're not really great at doing that kind of stuff, and if you haven't practiced, or if you get someone else to do your work for you or something like that, then you're going to have trouble, right? But if you've practiced and you're doing it yourself, there shouldn't be any issues. You should be able to do it no problem, right? So
before you opened up GitHub, sorry, almost a minute to get. We're at index.html. Where were you?
So before I did this, all I did was I changed lesson 5, so my title to lesson 5. I didn't change anything else, right? And so that way, just we're this is a lesson 5, right? So that's why I've just modified my index. Right? Yeah. So I just did a git init. A git init basically, again, as a recap, initializes the local repository on your hard drive. That's what it does, right? The next piece after this is, after you do your git init, is you're going to do your git add dot, which is going to add all your files, you can add all these files to your repository, right? So your local repository. It's going to actually, it's going to stage everything to the staging area. Now, in order for you to complete your snapshot, you have to go commit. So git commit -m, and then the name of your commit. And whenever we start, we always start with initial commit or first commit. You can choose one or the other. Okay, and I press enter. When I've done that, it kind of shows you a list of files that you're adding. I'm just going to clear the screen here. There we go.
What was the second command?
So the first one I did, if I go back my history, I did git init. Then I did git add dot, right? That's the second command. Git add dot adds everything to the staging area, right? So it's basically getting ready to send everything to your local repository as a snapshot, right? That's what it's doing. Hasn't done it yet. It's just getting ready, right? Then the third command is git commit -m initial commit. And what it's going to do is, or you can use first commit if you like. What it's going to do is going to take that and everything in the staging area and create a name, a friendly name for it. So it's going to put it into that local repository, that hidden folder .git, which exists inside your project, right? Because remember, whenever you do anything with Git, it's stored in a kind of list, this hidden folder that's inside your project files. Okay, that's what it's doing. Okay, so once we've done that, we've done all these different things. I can clear the screen. On Mac, the command is clear. On Windows, it's CLS, right, for command prompt, right? So I clear the screen, and I'm ready to go to the next one. So I need to create a remote repository here. So again, I'm going to go to Georgian College, right? You okay, or you want me to go back?
Yeah.
All right.
Our own GitHub.
Right, yours will be on your own GitHub, obviously. Yes, I'm going to go to Georgian College. And when I do that, I'm going to make a new repository here, which I'm going to call lesson 5, right? Of today's lesson, and create my repository. There we go. Notice that I have a couple of commands. I'm just going to copy the last 2 commands here. These last 2 lines. Copy them. I'm going to go back into my terminal and I'm going to paste them in and press enter. Yep.
Oh, that's tricky.
Yeah. I'm just kind of showing you. I got to show you something new every time. Right? Come on, right? Actually, you can copy the whole thing if you really want, but the only thing is that it doesn't make none of it all makes sense. For example, this line is okay. Commit -m first commit. This line, we can't do this because I don't have just a README file. I want to git add dot. So that's the only thing that would change. So if it didn't exist, this line didn't exist, I can just go up, copy all this stuff, put it inside your command prompt, and it would work fine. And again, if you really wanted to, if you really were tricky, right? Here's some tricky stuff that you could do. You could save all these commands in a text file, right? All the regular commands over and over again, and just replace this stuff here with the new repository, and then just copy paste it, inside your command prompt, and you'd be done, right? It wouldn't be a difficult thing at all. But for now, we just kind of updated our repository here, and if I refresh, you can see that now I've got my my repository here on Georgia, right?
Sorry,
Lesson
can you
5.
step back, how you got all that onto the repository? Just that, would you mind repeating that?
Which, are you talking about how I copied and pasted, or?
Well, no, it's just the address you copy and paste.
Yeah, I copy paste the address and the last piece, which is git push minus your origin master. I copied both those lines in at the same time. The last two together.
The git push before the address.
Both of those. So git remote address, right? These two lines. I copied both these lines and copied them into your command prompt. The last two lines in your repository.
Is it possible to create a repo from the command prompt itself?
Yes, it is possible, but I don't recommend it. It's not for the meek-hearted, right? Sometimes you can make mistakes too, so I would just not do it right now. Do what I'm doing, the way I'm doing it, and it's probably the easiest way. Okay, so we've got our repository, and now guess what? I'm going to create my, my deployment on Azure, right? We're gonna go. I'm gonna do the whole piece again, over and over again with you guys, like I said. So to give you additional practice, right? So I'm gonna go back on Azure. So we're gonna go to portal.azure.com, right? And then I'm gonna log in. You guys should do the same. Everyone good with Azure now? Is there anybody that's not good with Azure still? Someone having problems? Because that would be a real issue at this point, right? We're into week 5 now, right? So I'm gonna log in. And this is a good thing. If you're good with Azure, this is going to be good for the other courses we're going to do with you going forward, right? So when you're with Rich on advanced or web programming on the computer side, or if you're doing if you're on the website like you guys are, you're doing server-side scripting, and I think that's some of you are doing that at the same time, right? As an example, or if you're doing anything else with us from a web perspective, a lot of the stuff we're going to be doing is going to be all up here on Azure. Right, so it's good to have this done in advance, and then you're really, kind of good to go. All right, so I got a bunch of these, websites, and this is, a couple from last week. Eventually, I'll clean them up, but I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to go plus. Notice that, for me, it's going to be the same as you. You'd have, a bunch of them. I'm going to go to web app, just like we did last week. So again, plus web and mobile web app. I'm going to create a friendly name, which I'm going to make COMP1073. And again, I'm gonna put in winter 2016 just to make myself a little bit different. And we're gonna put it for lesson 5. You can call yours whatever you like. So we're here like this. Margot, you good? Okay. Let's review that. And then I'm gonna click create. And it's gonna deploy a container, a place that I can put my web stuff, right? So it's empty at first, right? It's just a holding area for all my files, right? Nothing that you haven't seen before. I'm just going to go there, and then basically as it's turning, it's doing its little deployment dance here. It's deploying the web app space, but there really isn't anything in there when we first do it. So we're done. Notice that here that you see, like, I have an address for it now. Here's the address, and down here, what I want to do is I want to go to my publishing section, and I want to click the continuous deployment, and I want to click on this, which is configure required settings. I have several options here from a continuous deployment perspective, right? I could use Visual Studio Team Services or OneDrive or whatever. I don't recommend using things like Dropbox or OneDrive. I'm not really a big fan of that methodology, only because it's not a version control system, right? I mean, it's really like a backup. You're like, kind of launching from backup. I mean, it gives you the option just in case you have that need. The great thing about that is if you have some files, if you drop some files in Dropbox on your phone, right? Think about this, on your phone, and then you go to your portal on your phone, you can auto deploy from your phone right to Azure, right? Because you're just going from, write some files or whatever. I mean, or on your tablet or whatever, and you can write everything in even in a Notepad ++ or something like that with there's no IDE. Just drag it into Dropbox, point to it. Right, so there isn't even a repository, and send it up on Azure. It'll work as long as it's kind of valid indexed, or HTML and CSS. You're good to go, right? I mean, it's not really a big deal. That's kind of neat, but not really useful from a development perspective. Let's click GitHub, of course, And I'm slowing it down. I'm talking so I can give you guys time to catch up. That's the other reason why I'm saying that stuff. I'm going to choose my, Georgia College here, and my project, my specific project, which is this one, COMP1073, lesson 5. And then I'm going to leave it at the master branch because there can be multiple branches here, like subfolders. But I'm not going to do that, and press OK, right? And then it's going to do its deployment dance. And what I usually do with Azure and GitHub is I wait until I see the check mark. When I see the check mark over here on the right, even though it says successfully set up continuous deployment, I don't trust that. I'll wait till the check mark is ready to go. And you have to wait a couple more minutes here. If you give it a second, see that? There's that turn, right? Once you see this little animated GIF, that's happening here, animated icon, that's basically saying that it's doing its job. It's pulling the stuff or fetching the stuff from your GitHub repository to your web container. And when that's done, then you know for sure when the check mark is there that it's there, it's pulled over. Right? Now, if everyone's going to have a different speed of doing that. If we're all doing it at the same time, it's probably going to be faster for some, slower for others. You're ready to go? And there's my check mark. That's good. I'm ready to go. And to test it, I always try and test it out because, even though it does that, I'm still going to click on this thing. I'm going to do control click on this thing, or command click if you're on the Mac, and it's going to pull up, my little website. And it says, welcome to lesson 4, right? And if I refresh, that's a problem, isn't it? Because I said it's lesson 5, right? So I didn't change that. This is a great opportunity for us to modify this and to go back down to what my content. Here's welcome to lesson 4, right? And I'm going to do another little update. So I'm going to make this lesson 5. Notice that there's some first paragraph content here, like we did last time. And now that I've saved, I've got one change in my project files, right? One change that I've made in my Git repository. Now here I can use Visual Studio Code to add this to the staging area. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with the command line tools here, right? And again, it's an update. I'm just making a little update to my my repository. And again, I'm just going to say something like this: git add dot, which means I'm going to add everything in to the staging area. I only have one file that I need to add now. It's just my index.html. And then I'm going to say git commit -m, and it's going to say updated index.html, because that's what I've done, right? There's my change. And now if you notice, even on the Visual Studio Code, that little symbol that says I have a change is gone. That's good. And now I'm going to push it, git push origin master. But I don't use the -u option. I only do that the first time, because -u means unconditional, and it'll overwrite some stuff that I don't want it to overwrite. I'm going to press enter. And it's going to push it up to Git. And then within a few minutes, right, it's going to redeploy this thing to show us welcome to lesson 5, right, which is what's going to happen here. And if I refresh up on Azure, then here it is. Lesson 5 is already there, right? Notice what happens. Take a look at this thing that's going on here. If I refresh, I get my paragraph text for 1 second.
Quick jump, because that's where we added that paragraph from JavaScript.
Yeah, notice that, right, that it happens, right? Why is that? How should that be? And I'm just going to ask you that question. Why am I getting this? I'm replacing the paragraph, but I'm getting it for a second, not even half a second, right?
The end user shouldn't see it. So is it because of where we placed our change? Should it be faster or before? Well,
that's a good question. And if we go back to, let's take a look at what we've done, just as a recap. Because remember, this is part of what we're doing for tonight's, or for tomorrow's submission, right? So let's take a look. So I've added paragraph text here, and I'm replacing it. That's what's happening, right? I'm going to my scripts. I'm going to go into my app.js. And notice that I have an IIFE, an immediately invoked function expression, or a self-executing anonymous closure, all kinds of ways of saying the same thing. That's what we're using. And I've got a function. I'm using this second. Remember, I talked about two methods to kind of make functions happen last week. One of them was the named function way, this way, which is where I prefer you to use in this course. And the other way, which is the anonymous function, which I've kind of left active from last day, which is you make you kind of declare a variable and you assign it to an anonymous function. Here's an anonymous function here, right? And this anonymous function is the one, this is an alias, this variable becomes an alias or a pointer to this anonymous function, That's what this is doing, right? This format. So there's two different ways of doing functions that we've talked about, right? And this is the second way. Again, a very popular way as well. Like if you were going to look at this this methodology here, it's a little uglier, right? When you look at it, you see this function and this, semicolon and so on, and then this is a semicolon at the end, and so on, and then this var, which is kind of weird. This is more natural to us. If you're a programmer, this methodology is a lot cleaner. But let's take a look. Let me put it back to this. So I'm going to just switch it from here, from this one to this one, and I'm going to do that by uncommenting this one, right? And I'm going to comment this one. So I'm going to just comment this one up. Make sure that we use the proper multi-line comment style, which is multi-line comments can be accomplished again by / star / and anything between these two combination of symbols, that's all commented out in multiple lines of code. Or you can do single lines of code with the double / So if I can do every single line if I wanted to as well. It's a little bit more work that way though. Okay, so here's our other way, this named function, which is, I'm telling you, which is probably our preferred methodology because it's cleaner. You declare the function using the function keyword, and then we indicate the function name. So this is a named function, that's what it's called, right? And then we do a console log inside replace first paragraph function, right? That's what this is. And then we declare a variable called first paragraph that's going to hold a reference or create a binding, if you will, to the element that exists on the page. And I'm doing that here on line 15. So line 13, right? First, I declare the variable. I'm doing it on two separate lines. You could do it on one line, right? On line 15, I'm making a binding. I'm using this document.getElementById method. Okay, so the method getElementById belongs to the document class, right? The document class, it's actually, the document refers to our HTML document, right? So whenever I use document, it's pointing to the HTML document. And then I use a method, a function, if you will, that's built into the document class called getElementById. I didn't make it up. It's part of JavaScript. It's built in, right? Nothing to download. There's nothing extra to use. You can use this right out, kind of out of the gates, right? And then I'm pointing to, because I'm saying getElementById, right? I'm pointing to an ID attribute of the name first paragraph, right? So I'm saying, hey, JavaScript, go find some kind of ID with the name first paragraph and get a reference to that and put it into this first paragraph variable. So what it's going to do, because when I say get anything, get element by ID, get element by class name, get element by whatever, right? What it's going to do is it's going to go back to the index.html and search through it all until it finds this selector, this ID attribute with a name of first paragraph. That's what it does. It searches through the entire document, right? So finally it finds it, and once it finds it, it says, okay, what do I do now? So I go back to my app.js, and it says, well, take the inner HTML, right? Inner HTML is the child node of the paragraph, and we talked about parent-child relationships last week as well. The parent node would be the paragraph element, and the child node of the paragraph element would be the text element, which is that big, long lorem ipsum text. And so I'm saying, take this, and I can append to it, but what I'm really asking to do is I want to assign something new, right, into that element. So what I'm actually doing is overwriting what's in the actual paragraph text with my stuff, with my new paragraph data, which is like one liner, right? The reason why it's taking a little longer for it to happen up on Azure is because of the delay. So when I do a request, I'm putting a request to the server. I'm saying, hey, show me this index.html page. And it's going to show it to me the original way. Then it's going to process my request, right? And once I process my request, it's going to change stuff up. So it's going to be a half second of change. You're going to see something flash up and bam, it's changed, right? Let's see this again. So I'm going to save this, and I've changed it to this first paragraph style. Notice that I have a change up here on Visual Studio. If I click on Visual Studio again, notice there's my change that's been kind of, it's telling me it's changed. I go back to my folder. I go back to iTerm here, my terminal.
I filled that in at the top that we watched Rich just do that, we'll just put in the name of the, and it, and when I went back to my commit, it didn't actually take, it doesn't show it on my GitHub.
Well, the way to do it is, if you don't do it carefully enough, if you do this way, you're saying?
I just did it, and it opened up, so I might as well try it.
Well, here's how you do it. If you want to really do it, you can go here, and then the first thing you need to do is here where it says changes.
Yeah.
There's two options here. I can click the plus little symbol next to the thing that's changed, my app.js,
Right.
or I can I can just go into changes and click the plus right here. So this means all changes, all files. This one is just this file. So let's just do,
Just did the message,
that's what it
I
is.
did a check mark, so I didn't stage it.
So I need to stage it first. So I'm going to stage all, which means this now is staged. These are stage changes. Then I'm going to make a little commit, which is going to be called, I'm going to updated my or app.js file as an example, right? And then I'm going to click the check mark, right? Here it is. And I'm going to go to these ellipses here and click more and click push. So that's how you can do it through Visual Studio Code.
There's no rules on how you name the commits, so you don't have to use the word commit or
No.
custom or anything.
No, we don't name anything with the name commit typically, except for the first one, initial commit or first commit. Then after that, you just kind of, you indicate what changes you've made. You said, okay, I've added this feature, or I've changed this file, or whatever. So someone who's looking at a developer that's looking at your code, or let's say someone you're collaborating with, and in the future you'll be working with somebody else on a little project we're going to do here in class. They're going to look and go, okay, I see, Tom did this change, and Rich did this one, and Andrew did this one, kind of stuff. So he did these three things here, right? And this is where they kind of created their code. Okay, and if I go back to GitHub to see that, so if I go back to GitHub and I refresh, it's going to show me my 3 commits, and there's my 3 commits right here, right? So here's my initial commit, here's my updated index.html, here's my updated app.js file, right? So these are the 3 changes that I made, and it's all me, right? So if it was somebody else, you'd see their face and their symbol and their changes, right? That's really what's happening.
That's good. I just missed the one.
No problem. No problem. So that's the way you do it. And again, it's recorded, so you can always go back and see how that's done. Okay, so, and if I wanted to make another change, this is, let's say someone else, we kind of talked about this before as a review, this refresher stuff, right? Someone came up and said, we only see each other once a week, so gotta do a little bit of review. So someone comes in and does a change. Like, let's say, for example, I'm working with Ari, right? And Ari says, you know what, Tom, we need a README file, right? So, and if I want to collaborate with Ari, I'm going to show you this feature early now because we're kind of in week 5. So I'm going to show you a little thing. And Ari, I want you to join me on Georgian College COMP1073 lesson 5. Okay, so how are we going to do this, right? So when I have a repository here, I have my settings. All right, here's my settings. So this is something new for everybody, right? So we haven't talked about this yet. So here's settings. I go into settings, and notice as I go down on the left, there's collaborators and teams. Let's go back to that again. So I clicked on settings in my repository. You can click settings on any repository that you make, right? On the left is collaborators and teams. You're going to have to log in to your GitHub. So I'm going to put in my GitHub password. When I log in, I have the ability to add collaborators. Right, here's my section, or teams. I can create a new team and make a new team of collaborators. I just want to add Ari, right? So Ari needs to give me his GitHub username. So Ari, what's your GitHub username? Yep. Like that? I don't think so. There it is. So there's Kool-Aid Kid, Coolari, right? There it is, Coolari, right? So I'm going to click Add Collaborator. Now it's going to find it. If you're on GitHub, it'll find you with your name, right? Whoever you are. I'm going to click on Add Collaborator to add Ari as my collaborator, right? Now notice I can give him specific access. So I can say write, read, so team members can read, clone, and push to the repository. Admin, team members can read, clone, push, and add collaborators to this repository. So if I want to give him admin access, he can add Mallory, as an example, as a collaborator, right? If he wants to, or somebody else. So but let's say I'm going to add Mallory to the repository. Just Mallory, what's your name there?
Mallory 1.
Mallory, what is it? 1.3. This one? Oh, look at that, Mallory 1.3. Okay, I'm going to add her as a collaborator too. So I got both of them as collaborators. So Ari, what I want you to do I want you to go to that repo, right, as long as you accept, and I want you to add or change the repo here to add a README file. Oh, he's already done it. Oh, there he is. He's changed it. I've taken over the files. There you go. He's done it. And Mallory, I want you to go in there and fix that because I don't like that change. I want you to go fix that change because that's just, you know, make a nicer message, Mallory, because, you know, I like your messages more, right, than Ari's. Ari, don't keep changing stuff or else I'll have to put you in a headlock, right? All right, come on. All right. Let's see if that happens. So I've got a, notice that I got 5 commits now, right? I wanted to show you this piece. So this is, you know, important to look at. And if you look right now, I've got, so here's my initial commit from me. My updated indexation mail, app.js got updated. Hey, you know what? Ari created a README file and then he updated it, right? Let's see if Mallory's done anything yet. No, she's still not done anything yet. But I want you to try this out. I want you to, on your repositories, the guys sitting in the tables, maybe these tables here, try and collaborate. Set up a collaboration with the people on the table here. It's a little exercise, right? So let's say there's 3 of you in that table over there, and there's, if you're alone, and the gentleman that's alone, join that table over here and collaborate with those guys, right? So move over so you guys can collaborate with each other. And I want you to try it out, right? And the reason why I want you to try this stuff out is because we can't get good at it unless we do it, right? So let's refresh. Let's see what Mallory's put on my little repository, just cause, right? Mallory, what's going on, right? I thought by now. Yeah, I know, but where's Mallory? She hasn't put it. Oh, there it is. There she is. So now I've got my 3. So there's the 3 collaborates, right? So before you guys go around, I'm gonna stop recording in a second. Then as you guys collaborate, I'm gonna go around and check your work. One thing to note, guys. One more second of attention, please. One more second. Am I in sync? Am I in sync? Is my local repository right now in sync with my remote repository? No, it's not, right? Because there's 3 other commits that I didn't make. I didn't make, you know, this create or the update or the other update that Mallory did. So in order for me to get updated, I've got to go back down to my command prompt, and I got to do a git pull, and that's the process. Whenever someone else works on it, pull first before you do some changes, and then the changes. I got a bunch of files that I just pulled down, right? And if I look at my local files, right, go back to my local files, I got that README file now. There it is. You can't stop me, right? As long as I make some changes, right? So you see how it goes, right? That wasn't me, man. It wasn't me. It was somebody else. It was your co-conspirator on the table there, right? All right, so let's pause the video here for this piece. I'm going to go back to, I want to start checking around with people's work today. And then we'll do, when I come back, right, we'll do that next piece. We'll do this is kind of some new material that we haven't covered, okay? So I'm going to stop broadcasting at this point.